Growing up, there was a kid on our street who was odd. All of our neighbours recognised there was something wrong with him, and I would occasionally hear my parents talk about him in hushed tones. Physically, he was healthy, naturally gifted at sports, athletic, but kind of disturbingly intelligent. Even though still quite young, he was handsome, and girls liked him with dangerous magnetism. But there was something not quite right about him, something unhinged. This is the story of Merrick Watts. Peter Street's most famous neighbour, after Peter Moore, who played AFL for Collingwood, won 2 Brownlow medals as the competition's best player, was named captain of 2 AFL clubs, is a Hall of Famer, and has a son who is currently a premiership captain at Collingwood. But after that massive underachiever, there was Merrick. Unfairly criticised for talking about himself in the third person. Merrick wasn't a bad kid as much as he was a total fuck-up with a big heart. Let's start with the Suttons. They lived across the road. They had 2 kids, Adam and Jessica. Both were curious about Australian culture after migrating from South Africa in the 1980s. And were always keen to try anything Australian, like Vegemite, meat pies, and tadpoles in orange juice. The last one is a lesser-known delicacy. The Suttons had a small fish pond at their house, a design decision that would prove to be a poor one. This former goldfish pond had quickly manifested into a sex party location for a local frog population. The sheer amount of bubbly spoof was a testament to their collective lust. Filthy fucking creatures. One day after a successful fishing expedition in the pond using a kitchen colander, Merrick suggested that a glass of refreshing OJ was in order. Adam and Jessica agreed, but Merrick thought it best to pour the glasses himself. With the deft precision of a street grifter playing 3-card Monty, Merrick managed to pour 3 glasses, 2 containing orange juice and live tadpoles, the third, his, containing just orange juice. Sleight of hand, swift of mind, Merrick encouragingly devoured his juice to then watch with delight as his 2 favourite neighbours drank no less than a dozen infant frog sprog. Before realising what was in the glass. The 2 children immediately vomited upon recognition of their stupidity in placing trust in him. As they began to cry and call for their mother, Merrick did the only honourable thing someone can do in that situation. He ran home and hid in his room. This heroism would follow him for his entire life. The leafy suburb of Eltham was and is a wonderful place for children to grow up. There was a strange yet harmonious blend of artists and bogans living there. This dichotomy of incongruity is something a young Merrick would easily move between his entire life and indeed shape him into the literary genius he would later become. Merrick's own home was a quaint English-styled mud brick cottage on an acre of land off a dirt road. A bushy oasis within suburbia. Flimsy wire fences determined boundaries. The canopy of trees on all properties overlapped to create a serenity that was appreciated by many and challenged only by 2-stroke lawnmowers and the occasional small bushfire created by Merrick after discovering a bull ant nest and Dad's mower fuel. Remember bull ants? You don't see them anymore, do you? Because I fucking killed them. You don't. Oh, that's awful. That's not possible. Okay, let's move on. Next door to Merrick was an elderly couple named George and Berry. They were happily married except for the fact that Berry hated George. George was a bit of a weirdo and was often caught hiding in the bushes near the fence to watch Merrick's topless mother, Alison, as she laid poolside. In hindsight, this snow-dropping behaviour should have been reported to the police, But because it was the 1980s, it was dealt with a simple, "Mum, George is hiding in the bushes again." The 80s had a weird style of justice. Like, if you were caught smoking, your dad would make you smoke an entire packet in front of you to teach you a lesson about smoking. 5 years later, you'd realise that lesson was cigarettes are addictive, as you bought 2 packets of Winnie Blues for $10 at the age of 14. Merrick's mother, Alison, was a hard-working woman with a massive heart. She wished to help her neighbours George and Barry by sending Merrick next door to do their lawns and work in their yard. A laborious task. It was unclear if this was also, in fact, a distraction to get Merrick to stop setting fire to things. Merrick had a soft spot for Barry. She was kind, weathered, and totally fucking insane. Some people in the neighbourhood referred to her as the witch. Not because she was bad or scary, but because she literally wore a hat like a witch. And looked like a fucking witch. Merrick liked her a lot. Another thing about Barry that Merrick knew, that the other neighbourhood kids didn't, is that Barry was loaded. Proper rich. Her family were landowners in New England, and although she was sartorially frugal, she was in fact capable of buying the whole street. Upon his mother's compassionate request, Merrick went next door and committed half day to working in their bush garden. It was hot, like 42 degrees, but because it was the 1980s, children were safe to exposure from the sun until it reached 60. After what had to be described as a very good job, Merrick approached the house in his footy shorts and safety thongs. And began fantasising about the gold, rubies and diamonds Barry would no doubt bestow on this child in the most Charlie and the Chocolate Factory kind of way. "Mrs. Davidson, I finished your yard," he said so coyly that he was sure that she would cry as she reached for the bouillon. "My dear boy, look at you. You're as red as a tomato. Would you like a glass of lemonade?" Merrick was like, "Is the Pope a dude in a dress with suspicious intentions?" "Yes." Barry went to the fridge and poured Merrick a glass of milk. Proper crazy. It was at this point Merrick had concerns about the Solomon's Cave of treasure he was just short of receiving. Barry then pulled out her purse. This is more reassuring. A large, leather, hard-worn, half-handbag-looking thing that was probably owned at some stage by Captain Midnight. The obvious sounds of coins denoted that this was a sack of gold and the youth was about to be rewarded like a returned crusader. Barry reached in, jingle, jangle, jingle, jangle, and then a handful of coins. A proper handful of coins. All of them brown. Merrick thought, brown? Odd. They must be extremely dirty because gold coins are typically gold. These were not the $1 and $2 coins Merrick equated to be at least worth $40. The brown handful of monetary dog shit was placed in his hand with a warm smile Barry had reserved for special occasions, like when George fell downstairs. Merrick could smell the currency. 2-cent coins literally had a different smell to $2 coins. It was the smell of metallic misery. Barry thanked Merrick genuinely and even offered him another glass of lemonade. But Merrick had had his fill of dairy for the day. As he walked to his home, Merrick thought to himself, this is not enough. Ironically, it was not even enough to buy him an actual glass of lemonade. Before he got to the fence, he turned back. trying to figure out a graceful way to ask for more than the 35 cents that he'd been paid. He appeared at the door, working up the gumption, and entered the kitchen. Berry was not there. She was in the living room putting gnats into a crucible with her two lady friends. Oh, look, somebody's read Macbeth, haven't they? Well done. A couple of people in here smart. A few people just laughing to pretend they know the reference. Let's move on. It was then Merrick saw another leather parcel on the table. It was George's wallet. Taking 0.03 seconds, Merrick, mentally justifying his actions, opened the wallet to reveal a library of paper notes. George, you cheeky prick. It was his gambling cash. Noticeably absent were the brown $1 notes, the green $2 notes, and the purple 5s. It was exclusively reserved for the blue tongue 10s, the red lobster 20s, a few pineapple 50s, and even 3 rarely seen grey nurse 100s. Shit, this is more money than he had ever seen. And without hesitation, he grabbed one of each, but balked at the 100. The absence of a grey nurse would definitely be noticed. He turned heel and left as fast as possible. Merrick, although naughty and mischievous, he was not dishonest, and the lack of justification struck him like lightning as he was about to cross the Rubicon back into his own yard. George was old. This was his money, and Merrick was stealing it. Yes, it was ill-gotten gains from the horse track, but it wasn't justification enough. Then it hit him. George had failed to pay titty tax. The fee imposed on men who stare at people's boobs when they're sunbaking. Perhaps he should impose this newly found pervert tax. Pimping out his mum? Perhaps. It was morally murky at best. Eventually, he decided his mother's integrity was not worth a bouquet of cash in his hand, so he returned to the house for a second time, walked in, and stole one of the grey nurses from George's wallet. That's how much he valued his mother. $180, not a cent less. A beautifully tender moment from a sensitive young man, and just the beginning of a long history of recidivism. Thank you.